When you think of a predator, what comes to mind? Probably a lion, maybe a shark. But what if I told you that some of the planet's cleverest hunters have no teeth, no claws, and they can't even move? Well, today we're jumping into the truly strange and amazing world of India's predatory plants.
I know, it sounds completely backward, right? It just breaks all the rules we learned in biology class. Plants are supposed to be at the bottom of the food chain, just sitting there soaking up the sun. But the answer to this question is an absolute yes. You see, in the constant battle for survival, some plants figured out how to flip the script on the entire animal kingdom. So what does it actually mean for a plant to be carnivorous? Well, first off, it's not about getting energy the way we do from food. Nope, they still get their energy from the sun through photosynthesis. The real secret is that these plants evolved in really tough neighborhoods. Think bogs and wet marshes where the soil is terrible, with almost no key nutrients, especially nitrogen. So, to solve this problem, they came up with a pretty radical solution. If you can't get your food from the ground, just get it by eating your neighbors. And this evolution wasn't just some small tweak. It led to an absolute masterclass in adaptation, showing us exactly how these stationary organisms learn to become active, incredibly cunning hunters just to solve a basic survival problem. You know, when it comes to hunting, these plants basically have two main playbooks. First, you've got your active traps. These are straight out of a sci-fi movie. They actually move, they snap shut, they react in a split second. And then you have the passive traps. These guys are the masters of deception. They use clever lures and inescapable prisons, where the prey just falls in or gets stuck all on its own. So let's see how these strategies play out in India.
While you can find these plants all over the world, India is home to a really unique and diverse collection of these predators. They mostly belong to three major botanical families.
We're talking about the Drosera family, which includes those super fast water wheels. Then there's Nepenthes, famous for their deadly pitcher plants. And finally, Lentibuliariaceae, which is home to the unbelievably clever bladderworts. And believe me, each family has its own special toolkit for catching a meal.
Okay, now for the really cool part. Let's take a closer look at the actual mechanisms these plants use. And I mean, these aren't just simple traps. They are highly evolved, perfectly engineered little killing machines.
First up, we've got the water wheel plant, and this thing is truly bizarre. It has no roots, it floats freely, and it lives its whole life underwater. But its most incredible feature? Its trap, which works exactly like a classic steel trap, snapping shut on any poor little aquatic creature that just happens to drift too close. The speed here is just mind-blowing. The second a tiny insect touches one of those little trigger hairs, it is game over. The two halves of the leaf snap shut in a fraction of a second, locking the victim inside. Seriously, it's one of the fastest movements in the entire plant kingdom. Okay, so from a lightning-fast trap, let's switch gears to something, well, a lot more patient. This is the pitcher plant, specifically Nepenthes khasiana, and you can only find it in the Khasi hills of Meghalaya. Unlike the water wheel, this plant doesn't move at all. It just waits, offering what looks like a really sweet reward. This is the classic pitfall strategy. An insect gets drawn in by the promise of sweet nectar right on the pitcher's rim. It lands to get a drink, but the rim is incredibly slick. The insect loses its footing, tumbles down into the pitcher, and lands right in a pool of digestive enzymes. It is absolutely a one-way trip.
And now, for what might be the most ingenious trap of them all, the bladderworts. These plants, which you'll find in water or super soggy soil, have dozens of these tiny sacs, or bladders, but they're not for storage. Oh no, they are high-speed underwater vacuum cleaners.
The way this works is just incredible. The bladder actually pumps water out, creating a low-pressure vacuum inside. When an unsuspecting creature touches the trigger bristles near the trapdoor, that door flies open. The vacuum instantly sucks the victim inside with a rush of water, and the door slams shut right behind it. This all happens in milliseconds. It's unbelievable. And the variety just keeps going. We also have what are called flypaper traps. The Sundews, for instance, are covered in these little tentacles that ooze a glistening, sticky glue. Insects think it's morning dew, they land on it, and they get stuck. Then the tentacles slowly curl around them. Butterworts use a similar trick, but for them, their entire leaf surface is the trap, and it rolls its edges inward to secure the meal.
So it's pretty clear these plants are deadly predators. But here's a twist that you probably won't see coming. For centuries, local communities have looked at these plants and seen them not just as killers, but also as healers.
It's amazing, right? For example, the fluid from inside a pitcher plant was actually used as eye drops or to treat cholera. Sundews were used for everything from curdling milk to dyeing silk. Bladderworts were applied to wounds to help them heal. It's pretty likely that the same powerful enzymes that break down insects also have antiseptic properties. It just shows this deep, traditional knowledge that sees value way beyond their predatory nature.
But this story has a very serious final chapter, because these marvels of evolution, these incredibly specialized survivors, are now facing threats that, sadly, they just can't adapt their way out of.
The reality is, many of these amazing plants are officially listed as endangered. That includes the pitcher plant, which, remember, is endemic, meaning it's found nowhere else on Earth, and the water wheel plant. They're disappearing from the wild at a really alarming rate.
And the reasons why? Well, they're tragically familiar. First, their specialized wetland habitats are being drained to make way for cities and farms. Second, pollution from fertilizers and pesticides is poisoning the water they rely on. And third, their very uniqueness makes them targets for illegal collectors, for both gardening and for medicinal trade.
And here is the final cruel irony in all of this. Remember, these plants evolved to eat animals precisely because their environment has no nutrients. So when fertilizers and other pollutants wash into their homes, loading the water with nitrogen and phosphates, it's poison to them. The very thing that makes most other plants thrive is actually toxic to these specialists. So that leaves us with this final question. These plants, they represent some of the most creative, most bizarre solutions that evolution has ever dreamed up. They're absolute masters of their environment. But at the same time, they're incredibly fragile. Protecting them really means we have to protect the unique, nutrient-poor wetlands they call home. And that's a challenge that requires all of us to see the value in these strange, beautiful, and deadly survivors before they're gone for good.